So we live in this era of incredible technological marvels, right? Things that basically promised us a future of leisure.
Oh, absolutely.
Like we have artificial intelligence, advanced automation, robotics, all these tools that were supposed to drastically reduce our work hours.
Right. That was the whole utopian dream.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yet we actually seem to be working longer hours than ever. And a lot of us are doing it in jobs that feel, well, completely pointless.
It's a huge paradox.
It really is. So today we're doing a deep dive into David Graeber's 2018 book, Bullshit Jobs, a theory published by Simon & Schuster, to really examine this exact issue.
And it is a incredibly provocative text, to say the least. Graeber, who is an anthropologist, he doesn't just observe that people are unhappy at work.
Right.
He makes this structural argument that a massive percentage of modern employment is objectively unnecessary, and that keeping these roles around is actually a defining feature of modern capitalism.
Yeah, and our mission for this deep dive isn't just to, complain about having to go to work.
No, definitely not.
We really want to unpack Graeber's specific diagnosis here. We're going to explore how he categorizes these meaningless roles, the economic forces keeping them alive, and finally, this profound psychological toll.
What the book calls spiritual violence.
Yes, the spiritual violence this system inflicts on us. But to do that, we need to start with Graeber's precise definition.
Right, because he isn't just talking about bad jobs.
Exactly.
Like jobs that are exhausting or underpaid, those are bad jobs, but they usually produce real value. I mean, a cleaner or a farm worker, they do essential labor.
Yeah, we literally need them to survive.
Right. Graeber defines a bullshit job as paid employment that is so completely pointless, unnecessary, or even pernicious that even the employee cannot justify its existence.
But the kicker, and this is crucial, is the element of pretense.
Yes, the pretense is everything.
The book emphasizes that as a condition of employment, the worker basically has to pretend the job is necessary. It's this shared illusion between the employee and the employer.
And maintaining that facade day in and day out is what really separates a functionally useless task from a fully realized bullshit job.
Yeah, and there are these two case studies he uses that they completely blew my mind.
Oh, the apex cases. Let's hear them.
Okay, so the first one is about this subcontractor named Kurt who worked for the German military.
Right.
But he wasn't like building tanks or anything. He was a subcontractor of a subcontractor of a subcontractor. His entire existence was just administrative bloat.
Pure bureaucracy.
Exactly. So Graeber gives this anecdote where a soldier in military office needed to move a computer desk just 5 meters into the next room.
Just down the hall.
Literally next door. But because of this deeply privatized logistics system, the soldier wasn't allowed to just pick up the monitor and move it.
Of course not. That would be too easy.
Right. Moving this one computer required 15 pages of paperwork, approval from 3 separate private companies, and then dispatching Kurt and a coworker to drive up to 10 hours round trip.
Just to physically move the machine.
Yes. And Graeber notes that this little excursion cost German taxpayers about 400 euros.
It perfectly dismantles the idea that privatization always creates efficiency.
Totally. It just became an environment where generating the paperwork was more important than the task itself.
And then there's the case of Joaquin Garcia, which is just, it reads like a dark comedy.
Oh, the Spanish civil service.
Yes. He was employed to supervise a water treatment plant, but he slowly realized there was absolutely nothing for him to do there.
So what did he do?
He just stopped showing up to the office,
Right.
literally for 6 years.
6 years.
And Graeber finds the outcome incredibly telling. The plant didn't fall into disrepair, the local government didn't collapse.
Nothing happened.
Nothing. Garcia just stayed home and used his time to become an expert on the Jewish philosopher Spinoza. The city functioned perfectly.
And the punchline is, the deputy mayor only noticed he was missing when it was time to give him a medal for 20 years of long service.
You really can't make it up.
Reading these, it really reminds me of playing a badly designed video game.
Oh, how so?
You know those games where you're forced to do meaningless fetch quests? Like walk across a massive map just to collect 10 shiny rocks.
Ah, yeah. Just to waste your time.
Exactly. It doesn't advance the plot. It doesn't take skill. It just exists to pad out the game's total playtime. So the developers can say, look, our game is 80 hours long.
That is such an apt comparison for the lived experience of these workers, but Graeber doesn't just stop at these anecdotal absurdities.
Right, he categorizes them.
Yeah, he suggests that a typical corporate office is basically an ecosystem of dysfunction populated by 5 specific types of bullshit jobs.
Okay, let's walk through this taxonomy. Who are the species in this ecosystem?
So the first group he identifies are the flunkies.
Flunkies.
Yeah, people whose only professional purpose is to make a superior feel important or powerful.
Like who?
Like receptionists at businesses where the phone literally never rings, or elevator operators in fully automated buildings.
Ah, so they're basically human decorative items.
Exactly. They exist so the boss can say, look at the size of my staff.
Got it. What's the second type?
The goons. These are roles with aggressive elements that exist strictly because a company's competitors have them.
So like an arms race.
Yes. Graeber points to corporate lawyers, telemarketers, PR specialists. The argument is that if nobody employed these people, society wouldn't actually miss them. They just cancel each other out.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the third category, which I honestly found the most frustrating to read about. The duct tapers.
Oh, the duct tapers. Yeah, these are employees hired solely to fix avoidable organizational glitches or structural flaws.
Right, flaws the company just refuses to address at the root level.
Exactly. Like a massive corporation where 2 vital software systems don't talk to each other.
Instead of just paying to upgrade the software.
They hire a team of people to manually copy and paste data from one broken system to another 8 hours a day indefinitely.
It's so bleak. The job only exists because the organization is fundamentally broken.
And Graeber points out that the psychological toll here is immense because the worker knows their job shouldn't even exist.
Which is a perfect segue to the fourth group, the box tickers, because they operate on a similar level of futility.
Oh, absolutely. These are the people whose only function is generating paperwork so an organization can claim it's doing something it actually isn't.
We're talking about like massive internal compliance reports or endless employee satisfaction surveys that management completely ignores.
Or thick binders of data that will literally never be read by a human being. The output isn't meant to be used. The output is the paper trail itself.
Right. And finally, the fifth group.
The taskmasters. These are the unnecessary superiors.
And they fall into 2 camps, right?
Yeah. The first camp is middle managers whose entire job is just assigning meaningless tasks to the other 4 categories.
And the second camp.
The second, which is a bit more pernicious, are managers whose only job is to invent entirely new bullshit jobs just to justify their own existence.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because this is where Graeber's argument really runs headfirst into conventional economic wisdom. Well, we're taught that capitalism and the free market are ruthlessly efficient.
Right. Cut costs, maximize profit.
Exactly. So why on earth would profit-driven organizations pay people to be useless? I get the feudal lord comparison he makes, but modern CEOs answered to Wall Street.
It's the pivotal question of the whole book.
Right. How does a CEO get away with paying 50 flunkies without the board firing them for wasting money?
Graeber answers this by arguing that we aren't actually operating under traditional market capitalism anymore. He calls it managerial feudalism.
Managerial feudalism. That sounds like an oxymoron. How does he connect modern management with the Middle Ages?
Well, he argues that corporate wealth today is increasingly extracted through rent-seeking and financial manipulation rather than just making and selling better products.
Okay.
In a feudal system, a lord didn't show his power by how efficiently he ran his farm. He showed it by the sheer number of retainers, guards, and flunkies hanging around the castle.
Ah, so it's about prestige. If Company A hires a massive team of internal PR consultants, Company B feels they have to do the same just to look equally important to investors.
Even if neither team actually helps the bottom line, it's a total arms race of perceived corporate importance.
That's wild.
And he uses a 3-layer causality model to explain how this bizarre system actually survives against free market pressures.
Let's break those down. What's the first layer?
The personal level. Basically, why do individuals take these jobs?
Well, that part's easy. People need health insurance, they need to pay rent, and, our society ties your worth directly to having a professional title.
Right. But the second layer, the socioeconomic level, is where he addresses your Wall Street question. He points to financialization.
Financialization, so moving money around instead of making things.
Exactly. Over the last few decades, the economy shifted. If a company's main business is making bicycles, they hire engineers and factory workers.
Right, people who make things.
But if that same company shifts to buying out competitors, restructuring debt, and speculative futures, the workforce changes.
Suddenly you need corporate lawyers, compliance officers, risk analysts.
Yes. Financialization shifts the economy toward administering things, and administration requires endless layers of managers.
Which creates a massive breeding ground for box tickers and taskmasters.
Precisely. Now, the third layer is cultural and political. And this is where his thesis gets deeply systemic.
Right, he asks why society doesn't push back against this massive waste of human potential.
And we should frame this clearly as Graeber's perspective from the text. But he argues that keeping people busy with meaningless work is actually politically convenient for those in power.
Right, because he says the ruling class is historically terrified of a population with free time and economic security.
Exactly. He points back to the 1960s. Productivity was high, wages were strong, and a whole generation had surplus time and energy.
And that led to massive social upheaval. Civil rights, anti-war protests, a total questioning of the status quo.
And Graeber suggests the establishment viewed that as a profound threat. So, in the wake of that era, work was intentionally reshaped.
It became a moral duty, a form of discipline.
Right. The narrative became, if you aren't working grueling hours, you're lazy, regardless of whether your work actually achieves anything useful.
He has this one quote that is so visceral. He writes, "Workplaces are fascist. They're cults designed to eat your life. Bosses hoard your minutes jealously like dragons hoard gold."
It is such a striking image. It really captures the idea that the modern workplace isn't about what you achieve in a minute. It's just about the fact that the employer owns that minute.
You just have to sit at the desk and perform the act of working.
Exactly. And this leads right into one of the most fascinating mechanisms in the book, the value paradox.
The inverse relationship between pay and social value.
Yes. Graeber argues that under our current framework, the more a job actually benefits society, the less it tends to pay.
Like nurses, garbage collectors, teachers.
Right. Essential, tangible labor that is chronically underpaid.
If they vanished tomorrow, society would completely grind to a halt. But the highest paid industries, like high-frequency trading, contribute the least.
Or are actively harmful.
Right. So why does this happen? Shouldn't a free market reward actual value?
Graeber explains it through a cultural lens. He argues society has twisted the concept of caring labor into its own moral reward.
So the logic is, like, you get the profound satisfaction of teaching children, so you shouldn't demand a high salary.
Exactly. The system uses the intrinsic value of the work to financially exploit the worker.
Wow. So the flip side must apply to the bullshit jobs then.
It does. In Graeber's view, the high salary for a pointless corporate role acts as a bribe. The worker is being financially compensated for the spiritual violence of doing something utterly meaningless.
Spiritual violence. That phrase really hits hard. It grounds the human cost of all this.
He really sees it as a profound moral damage, a scar across our collective soul.
And he roots this psychological toll in evolutionary psychology, right? The pleasure at being the cause.
Yes. Humans have this hardwired, instinctive need to see that they can make a predictable impact on the world around them.
Like an infant knocking over a block.
Exactly. The baby laughs not just because the block fell, but because of the joy of agency, the realization of the self.
I am a cause in the universe. I push, it moves.
Right. And Graeber argues that bullshit jobs systematically sever that connection.
Because you're just sending emails into a void.
Or generating compliance reports nobody reads. It attacks the very foundation of human agency. You're forced into passive immobility despite expending energy.
It totally redefines modern burnout. People aren't burning out from backbreaking physical labor. They're burning out from the crushing weight of meaninglessness.
Which ties perfectly into his application of emotional labor.
Right. Normally, we think of emotional labor in the service industry,
Yeah.
like a barista faking a smile for a rude customer.
Performing labor by faking genuine emotions.
But Graeber says that in the modern office, the emotional labor is faking busyness.
Yes. The grueling performance of looking incredibly focused on a spreadsheet when you literally have nothing to do.
Maintaining that illusion, constantly under a manager's watchful eye, it's deeply draining.
So the ultimate question is, if we're trapped in this managerial feudalism that inflicts all the spiritual violence, does Graeber propose a way out?
He does. And it's a massive systemic shift. He advocates for universal basic income, or UBI.
And again, this is his proposed solution from the text. He roots his UBI argument in classical economic theory, specifically the labor theory of value.
Looking at the disconnect between wealth distribution and actual tangible labor.
Right. If the people doing the necessary caring labor are struggling, while the flunkies and taskmasters accumulate wealth, Graeber says the system is broken.
So his fix is UBI, providing basic needs, housing, food, healthcare unconditionally.
Theoretically decoupling human survival from this compulsory work system.
It's all about stripping away coercion. If you aren't terrified of losing your health insurance, you're way less likely to agree to sit in a cubicle doing nothing just for a paycheck.
You'd only take a job if it offered real value or genuine personal satisfaction. Graeber suggests UBI would literally starve bullshit jobs out of existence.
Because the financial bribe wouldn't outweigh the spiritual violence anymore.
Exactly. So, to synthesize his overarching thesis, financialized managerial feudalism has weaponized work as a tool for political oppression and moral discipline,
Spawning meaningless roles that alienate us from our fundamental need to impact the world.
That's the core of the book. Understanding the mechanics of a system is the first step to navigating it, regardless of whether you agree with his ultimate conclusions.
Absolutely. And for listeners feeling trapped in that cycle of performative busyness, Graeber offers a profound validation. It's a structural explanation for a very personal frustration.
It really is.
We want to thank you for spending your time with us today, exploring this theory. But before we go, we want to leave you with something to ponder.
A final thought.
We started with the paradox of technology failing to give us free time. If Graeber is right, and the real harm of a meaningless job is losing our ability to impact the world, consider your own routine.
Outside of work.
Right. What is one small area in your life, completely outside the watchful eyes of the time-hoarding dragons at the office, where you can reclaim your pleasure at being the cause today?